Hey, Coach. We just talked to Deshaun, and last year there was a really clear correlation between how many points he scored and if you guys won or not. Can you kind of lead me through, just Deshaun having to take on a bigger role this year and having to become one of the main guys for you?
Yeah, as I look at last year's team, Jake, we had McKinley and Tyler, and I thought Deshaun was kind of that X factor, like you said, when he scored well, we were good. And I would put Evan in that category as well. Evan was kind of that guy too, and Evan it was tough for him last year because Tyler was around the rim so much. It really turned Evan into a perimeter player, which he's certainly capable of playing there. But with Tyler gone, now I look at McKinley and Evan and Deshaun as kind of our big three, so to speak. I mean, that doesn't mean that everybody else isn't important because they are. But I think those three, night in and night out, have got some responsibility, that goes with kind of being one of those main guys. And Deshaun last year, probably Tyler and Ken took more of that role, but he's a really, really talented player. He's a senior now. He's playing with great confidence. And I've always said with Deshaun, when he plays aggressive, good things happen for us. When he plays tentative and is not assertive, we aren't as good as we can be.
All right, next question from Pat.
Coach, obviously we've talked a lot about the slump at the end of last season. We tend to focus on kind of a team-wide shooting slump that seemed to hit everyone at the same time. Your defense also really hit a wall there down the end. You were one of the better defensive teams in the Pac-12 for most of the year until the last couple of weeks. How have you gone about this preseason, especially without Tyler, Defensive Player of the Year? How have you gone about maybe trying to regain that defensive edge with this group going into the season?
Pat, we just preach it every day. We work on it every day. We work on guarding the ball every day. We work on our ball screen defense every day. We're just emphasizing it. And again, it comes back to a mindset. And the mindset is, what can you do to help your team when you're not scoring the ball? Because last year, or shooting the ball in the basket. Because last year we had a lot of guys that weren't shooting the ball in the basket at the end of the year, and it puts a lot of pressure on your defense when your defense isn't able or ready to pick up that load. It's not a good sign for your team. And the other thing I think is trying to be a little bit more aggressive. And as you know, we're not necessarily a pressing team, but that doesn't mean that we can't be an aggressive half-court defensive team and create offense with our defense. The only way you do that is by dictating your will on the game, putting pressure on the ball, and causing the other team to turn the ball over and maybe creating some stuff, with your defense. And we weren't able to do that last year. Hopefully, I think we'll be able to do that at times this year. But it really gets back to a mindset. And I think last year, we had some guys that were feeling sorry for themselves on offense, and it was affecting their defense. And then you get into the I call it the toilet swirl. There ain't no way out. You're going down.
All right, next up, Justin.
Tad, when we've talked to you over this past month, a couple areas in which you've mentioned this team might be a little bit lacking have been conditioning and aggressiveness when it comes to rebounding. And now just a couple days after when you guys hit the road for the Little Apple Classic, in those two respects, has your team taken enough steps in the right direction to where you're satisfied that when this first game comes around that you guys are going to hit the ground running?
Justin, I sure hope so. Because it is, we won't know that answer to that question until Wednesday night, at 7:00 in Manhattan, Kansas. But I'd like to think so. Again, we talk about not rising to the occasion, but we fall back on our preparation. And, from what I've seen in practice, we're getting better at going to the offensive glass. We're not a great box out team yet. We got some guys who can go get it. Jabari Walker is really rebounded the ball well in our scrimmages and in our practices. But that's one area I want our guys to be extremely selfish. So, right now I would give our team probably a C maybe a C+ in that category, and it's got to continually get better.
All right, next up, Jake.
Hey, Tad, you said this week that you guys were working on rotations and lineups and stuff like that. Now 5 days out, have you kind of got a good idea of what the starting five, what the bench rotation is going to look like for you yet? Or is that still kind of being determined over the weekend?
Yeah, that's something we really started to talk probably starting yesterday. We had a scrimmage yesterday, a 40-minute scrimmage with officials in here. And I watched that, yesterday afternoon and last night extensively. We started to have discussions as a staff about that yesterday. We'll continue on today now that practice is over with. And, we got an off day tomorrow. So it gives us Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to kind of prepare. And we're getting closer to that, and probably not ready to make any announcements yet. But it's interesting. We've got a team that, you look 1 through 4, maybe 5, you could argue. Probably 1 through 4, it's pretty clear cut from what's happening in practice. From the 5th man to the 10th man, there is a lot of gray area in there, where one day you could plug this guy in, the next day you could plug another guy in, and we've got really capable players, but nobody's really solidified themselves consistently, but we've had some guys really, I think, take steps in the right direction. I think, Max Daniels is a guy that I think has had a great, if I know football uses the term fall camp, we get 30 practices, but in the 27 practices we've had, Max Daniels has really taken a step forward in terms of his consistency, his ability to defend. He's making shots. So we've got some guys that are making strides, but the one thing I'll say about a starting lineup is, I've got a philosophy: you don't always start your 5 best players. Now you better finish with your 5 best, but you don't have to start with your 5 best, because I think as you get into second units and substitution patterns, you want to make sure you always have strength on the floor, both offensively and defensively. And that's something that we're really discussing as a staff.
All right, Coach, last question is from Pat.
Coach, I don't know how much game planning you put into the opener, but when you flip that page next week, when you start looking at South Dakota and start moving forward into this kind of season game mode?
Well, we've already started looking at South Dakota, Pat, but, the one thing about them is they got one returning guy that played a lot of minutes last year. They had 3 guys redshirting. They've signed a bunch of junior college players. So, it's going to be one of those piecemeal things. And, we look at their team last year and kind of how they played and what they ran offensively. You make some assumptions that they may do the same thing this year, but look, they can come out in something totally different. You don't know. They might come out in a 1-3-1 zone and play for 40 minutes. So you have to be prepared for everything, which at this time of the year is really difficult, but you're putting, a little bit of time. But quite frankly, it's more about Colorado to me right now than it is South Dakota. That'll certainly change as we get closer to next Wednesday, but we've started a little bit running some of the stuff that they run. Our guys don't even know it yet, but we've been working on it for the last day or two, a little bit, and we will continue to do that Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.